Hello and welcome to the Keep Your Cool Mama podcast, where we are encouraging the everyday mom to pursue her dreams and discover her own greatness. Hey, cool mamas. This is Sheilah, and you are listening to episode 14 of the Keep Your Cool Mama podcast. How are you guys? How's everything going? How are you and the family? I hope everyone is doing well, staying healthy, and making it through this difficult season that we're going through when it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic. I just want to say again that everyone in my audience and through your extended families and friends is in my thoughts and prayers as we go through this together. If you want to listen to episode 13, I just talk about what I'm going through personally through this pandemic and just giving some encouragement to all the moms out there. But this is episode 14, and I wanted to just talk to you guys a little bit about motivation and inspiration and when it's just not quite enough to get going on our goals and our dreams. Sometimes for some of us, not all of us, of course. So sometimes we are motivated by seeing those that we admire doing their thing, but we just can't seem to get going on our own dreams. In this case, we are motivated to dream, but not motivated to take action. We may feed ourselves excuses to convince us that it's okay not to move towards the lives we deserve to have, desire to have. The excuses may sound something like, I'll wait until things slow down in my life, or I'll wait until my baby is a little bit older. Whatever the excuse may be, we are generally thinking that if we wait until, whatever that wait until is, the path to a better life will be easier to attain. Sometimes you may even convince yourself that your life is just too crazy and hectic and it'll never happen for you, which I hope you know is not true if you do think like that sometimes, because sometimes we can go there, right? But here's the thing. We need to be more than motivated and inspired to get us moving on our goals. While motivation and inspiration are an important part to rev up the engine to get us going, it's not quite going to be enough, because we can have all of the inspiration and motivation in the world, but until we get moving, nothing will start to move. Nothing will help. Nothing other than action will help us get towards our ultimate goals, to achieving them. Now, when we wait until everything is just right, a different roadblock just seems to appear that will ultimately cause us to make more excuses and wait even longer to get things done. But that's life, right, girl? I mean, things are going to pop up. Things are going to happen. It's just what happens. And it's unfortunate, but we can still get through it. So today I want to talk to you about what other actions we need to have accompany the motivation in order to achieve whatever it is that we want to achieve in our lives. So let's start. I always like to start with the definition of what we're looking at. So what is motivation? Motivation is the general desire or willingness of someone to do something. So according to managementstudy.com, motivation is the word derived from the word motive, which means needs, desires, wants, or drives within the individuals. It is the process of stimulating people to actions to accomplish the goals. So the sentence I want to focus on is, it is the process of stimulating people to actions to accomplish the goal. Now, when we truly reflect on what motivation means, we will understand that motivation is just you acknowledging what you really want. It takes more than stimulation to get started. The stimulation is what helps you get started. It puts it on your mind and makes you want it more, right? It takes action, though, to get there. So let's discuss ways to take action, so we aren't waiting on motivation to magically make us move on our dreams, because we'll be disappointed every time. Now, granted, I want to say, as a disclaimer, there are those of us who only need motivation and can get moving on our dreams and our goals. But there are some of us that just need a little bit more. Sometimes people can have the motivation, they can hear the podcast, they can read the books, and they can do all of those good things. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this. Let's get to it. But then there are those of us like me, Sheilah Hicks, that it just takes a little bit more than that to get going. And, sometimes it's deep rooted. So I want to talk about that. So the first thing that I want to talk about is acknowledging any fears or doubts you may have when it comes to the goal that you want to achieve. Now, generally, when we have a desire to do something, but we just can't seem to get going on our goals, we are fearful or doubting something will not work, right? So I want you to ask yourself specific questions to get down to the bottom of your fears and your doubts and what they are. It's important that we ask ourselves questions, just like we ask everybody else questions about themselves. We have to ask ourselves questions and wait for our soul or the Holy Spirit to answer to us what the answer to those questions are and where it comes from. So some questions to start with, and of course you can go further than this, but I just want to give you a couple to start with so that it can just get you going if you do have some fears and doubts that are keeping you stuck. What am I afraid of? Now, I know it may seem like it may be pretty obvious, but to be honest, there are so many thoughts running through our minds that we'll miss out on what is actually going on up there. So when you specifically sit down and ask yourself that question, and it may take a little while for you to get the answer, right? But when you sit down and ask yourself that, get a pen, get some paper, and it may come right away or it may come later. And if it comes later, then have your phone ready for when you can open your notepad, or if you have pen and paper next to you, and write down answers as they come. But don't get frustrated, because sometimes it just takes a little longer for those answers to come. Now, when it comes to what your fears are, sometimes we are aware of what those fears are, but we just won't speak on it. We won't say what it is because we think that it will make us appear weak, or we're being negative, or whatever the case may be. But we need to acknowledge that. What is the specific fear that is causing us to not move on our goals? Like, I'm motivated. I hear all these stories of people doing what it is that I want to do. But for some reason, I just can't get started. So what am I afraid of? So the number 2 question is this fear based on fact or fear of the unknown? Now, sometimes the fear could be based on something that you heard that someone else has gone through in the industry, or whatever it is, the goal that you have. And sometimes it could be based on just us not knowing much about it. So it's important to pinpoint, especially if it's fear of the unknown. What is it that I'm afraid of? Why am I afraid of that? And where did this come from? So we need to pinpoint what fact is it based on, or what unknown circumstance that I think may pop up from this is it based on? And then the third question would be, have I done research or asked questions to help ease my fears and doubts? And not just to ease them, but to get true answers that will help you to understand, okay, I'm just tripping. It's not that bad. And even if such and such happened, this will be the solution to that. Or, and you could do that. So if you have a concern about what could happen with a certain thing that you might want to do, you think about, okay, if this happened, then what would I do? And then if this happened after that, then what would I do? And sometimes we have to think about things, come up with solutions ahead of time just so that we can ease our minds, so that we can keep going. Because sometimes we'll have fear about something, and we've just convinced ourselves that the fear is legitimate. I'm not going to do anything about this, or I'm going to wait until, and then that time never comes because the fear never goes away, because we haven't really acknowledged why we have that fear, where it came from, and what would be the solution to the problem, because there's always a solution to a problem. So when you start asking yourself these questions, you may discover that your fears could very well be deep rooted in something from your past experiences that you will need to heal from. So the important part is to simply start by asking yourself the necessary questions. Just start by asking yourself questions and see where it takes you from there. Number 2, the next thing that we can do, next action we can take is stop making your excuses believable. Now, I think we can all agree that the excuses we make for ourselves are so convincing. Oh my God. So convincing that we don't even take the time to challenge them. We don't even challenge our thoughts enough sometimes. Well, I know me, most of the time, I don't challenge my thoughts enough unless I'm intentional about it. So we have to be completely honest with ourselves about why we are not moving forward. This could be connected to the fears that we just discussed. Or it could just be that we're just being lazy about something and we don't want to put in the work, or we're intimidated. It could be a lot of different things, but we have to stop making excuses for ourselves and making them believable. We have to be honest. The next action that we can take is remind yourself why this goal is important to you. To be honest, it's easy to be motivated by those that inspire you, or simply having the desire to change. It's easy to have those things. The challenge is staying motivated. Can you relate to that? Like, you thought of something, you got started, and then you stopped. Because this happened to me with this podcast. In the beginning, I was super motivated and excited to do it. And I'm still always excited to do it. But the motivation that I have, it can dwindle sometimes, because it takes work to record a podcast, to come up with the topics, to produce it and edit and things of that nature. So when the motivation isn't quite there, I have to remind myself of my goal and why it's important to me. So always start there. So anything and anyone can come along and cause you to be distracted from the path you need to stay on. So when you notice that you are progressing, and starting to become, okay, so when you notice that you aren't progressing anymore and it's slowing down and you're starting to become stagnant, remind yourself why this goal is what you need and want for your life. This will help you to keep a one track mind and remain disciplined in attaining your goal. Your goal. So remind yourself of how proud you are of when you have accomplished even the smallest goals. Sit in that feeling and reintroduce yourself to your productive nature. So, what I mean is, think about when you lost those 5 pounds that you were super proud of. Like, oh my God, I did the exercise, I ate well, I can do this. I'm super proud of myself. Remind yourself of things like that, the time where you just did something so simple or something so big like that. And it's like, wow, I did that. I can keep doing this. And sometimes we have to sit in how we felt in that moment and remind ourselves I'm capable, I'm worth the work that it takes to get this done, and I can do it again with this situation. Take the time to be mindful of how you felt in those past moments and bring them to you in the current moment. Okay? All right. And last but not least, take one step at a time. Now, sometimes we become so intimidated and overwhelmed by the whole dream that we have for ourselves that we just stay still. And I want you to remember that every single step matters. Figure out what it takes to achieve your goal and break it down into small steps. Break it down into small chunks. So focus on each step at a time and achieve them one by one. Now think of this. When an artist creates a painting, they focus on one stroke at a time, right? One color at a time. Even if that one stroke turns out to be different than they anticipated it to be, it could take their painting into a different direction they weren't even planning. So allow your small actions to lead you to where you are supposed to go. Meaning, you may make mistakes, but those mistakes could very well teach you something you didn't realize needed to be known or get you in front of people and opportunities you never even dreamed of. We become so consumed with needing to know exactly how something will turn out, but we don't have the ability to see around a corner until we make it to that point, right? So why even try? So just take those small steps where you are at that moment and what you can do right now, because you'll learn from that. And each step you'll learn from, and it'll get you closer to where you're trying to go. Stay the course and keep it moving no matter what. The reality is we become so intimidated and overwhelmed by that dream that we, like I said, we don't take those steps because we're intimidated by the whole thing, and we're intimidated by things we haven't even learned yet. But you can start at the beginning and make your way there. So don't be intimidated by the whole picture because you haven't made it to the end yet. You have to start at the beginning to make it to the end. I just want to encourage you ladies to continue consuming motivational and inspiring content, the podcast, the books, your friends, YouTube videos. Continue consuming those things. But remember that once it has motivated you, it is up to you to start taking action and put that motivation to work for your life. The reality is, some days you won't be motivated, but you always have the ability to take action regardless of how motivated you may or may not be. Some days the action may be big, and some days it'll be small, and that's okay. All that matters is that you keep moving until you reach the first of many destinations in your journey. Well, ladies, that was episode 14. I hope that has motivated and inspired you. And I hope that whatever you are working towards, that you will start to take those first steps. I want you to do me a favor. If this episode has motivated and inspired you to move forward, and you know of anyone else in your life, another mom who would be motivated by this content, please share and please subscribe to this podcast by, also give me your ratings and let me know what you think. And I would love to hear from you guys. So if you have any questions or anything like that, please feel free to email me at keepyourcoolmama@gmail.com. And I hope everyone is doing well again. And I thank you for listening. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye. Before I let you go, seriously, before I let you go, please subscribe and leave a review with 5 stars if this podcast is inspiring you and helping you to grow. Let's spread the positivity so that we are visible to other mamas out there trying to find her own greatness. And if you need some advice or guidance regarding your own personal growth while tackling motherhood, please email me at keepyourcoolmama@gmail.com. Love you guys.